So one of the most frequently quoted verses of the Quran that you'll often hear from the ulama is وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that the only reason, the primary purpose why I made humans come from non-existence into existence, لِيَعْبُدُونَ, is to worship me. And of course, the best way of worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is through the salah and the dua. Now, Fakhruddin al-Razi, who was one of the greatest scholars in our history, he wrote a multi-volume tafsir of the Quran, commentary of the Quran in the Middle Ages. It's multiple volumes. Now, unless you're a scholar or a student of the sacred sciences, the chances are that you're not going to be able to read multi-volume Quranic commentaries. So Fakhruddin al-Razi, he said, I will summarize for you the entire message of the Quran and the entire message of Islam in 2 sentences. He said that we can summarize the entire message of the Quran and of Islam in 2 phrases: love of God and love of His creation, or serving God and serving His creation. Now, there's no better place to do that than the Masjid. In the Masjid is the place where you serve Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and you increase your love for Him, and you serve His creation and you increase your love for them as well. You'll often hear, we recently had the month of Ramadan, and the scholars will mention that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that the reason why I want you to fast is لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ, so that you gain taqwa. Now the Imams, they often mention that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to increase our taqwa, our God consciousness, our fear and our awe of God through fasting. But something interesting for you is that Junayd al-Baghdadi, who's one of the greatest scholars of spirituality in our history, his definition of taqwa is quite unique. So scholars normally say taqwa means fear of God. Junayd al-Baghdadi, the earliest scholar of Islam, he said taqwa is defined as the golden rule. The golden rule is what? It's the rule that every religion wants its followers to adhere to, which is loving for others what you love for yourself, and hating for others what you hate for yourself. That's his definition of taqwa. So again, the masjid is supposed to be the place where this also takes place. So, because of the fact that the masjid fulfills the role of our creation, our purpose of being on this earth, then the reward for taking part in building a masjid and contributing towards it in any manner is extremely high. So our Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, as an example, he said that whoever participates towards building a masjid, كَمَفْحَسِ قَطَاطٍ أَوْ أَصْغَرٍ, as small as a bird's nest or even less than that. Anyone who makes the smallest contribution towards a masjid, what will happen? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will build for them a palace in paradise. So it's something as small as a bird's nest or less than that. If that's your contribution, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will promise you mansions in Jannah. And nobody can fathom the kind of mansion that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make. Again, our Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he said that the lady in his time who used to clean the masjid, she used to sweep the masjid, and she died suddenly, and the Sahaba did not inform the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam of her death. And the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam was not happy with this. He said that, why did you not inform me? And the lady who used to sweep the masjid, that she's passed away. Did you consider her to be insignificant? Take me to her grave. So they went to her grave, and the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he prayed over her, and then he said that inni ra'aytuha fil Jannah, I am seeing her right now in the gardens of Jannah, because of the fact that she used to sweep the masjid. So any small contribution to a place like this, to the project that everyone's trying to accomplish here, inshallah that will get you gardens of Jannah, and inshallah it will be a guarantee of your Jannah. Likewise, our Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, uridtu ala ujuri ummati, I have been shown the reward of every single good deed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah has shown me, He's manifested before me the reward of every good deed that you do. حَتَّى الْقَذَابُ يُخْرِجُهَا الرَّجُلُ مِنَ الْمَسْجِدِ, to the extent that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has shown me the incredible reward that will materialize if you just remove a speck of dust from the masjid. Now, one of the main things that happens in the masajid is the glorification of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through reciting the Quran. Again, with the Quran recitation that will take place in this new project, our Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he informed us that when the heavenly inhabitants, there are 7 universes, okay? You should know this in Islam, that we believe that there are 7 dimensions, 7 universes, and this universe is the smallest amongst them. And it's so small compared to the universe above it, it's like the size of a ring that's thrown in an open desert. So our Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said that when the inhabitants of these 6 universes, the dimensions above us, when they look down towards this universe, it appears to be completely dark. The way that you look in the sky at night and it's completely dark. And our Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he drew a simile here. He said, when you look at the sky at night, the only thing that sparkles are the stars in that pitch black night. And in the same way, when the inhabitants of the 6 universes, they look down towards the earth, everything appears pitch black to them, apart from the places where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is being remembered through the recitation of the Quran. Because this world, this dunya, is absolutely insignificant and absolutely worthless to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, except for those places like the masjids where He is being remembered. Our Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said that the worthlessness of this dunya in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is like the wing of a fly. So if you saw now the wing of a gnat or a mosquito on the floor here, how significant is that in your eyes? It's absolutely, utterly worthless. So your Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is telling you that in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's eyes, this world is utterly worthless. It doesn't mean a thing to Him, apart from those places where He is being remembered in the masajid and where the Quran is being recited. And the other benefit of the masajid, of establishing a project like this, is that the barakah, the blessings, they also extend to the wider community who are both Muslim and non-Muslim. So our Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, you don't just get reward yourself for establishing a masjid, but he said sallallahu alayhi wa sallam that Allah told him that inni la'ahummu bi ahli al-ardi adhaban. Allah says to our Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam that quite often I decree, I predetermine, I foreordain to descend my wrath, my anger, my punishment on the inhabitants of a particular area. But then what happens? However, فَإِذَا نَزَرْتُ إِلَىٰ أُمَّارِ بُيُوتِي, but then I look towards those people who establish and maintain my masajid, وَالْمُتَحَابِينَ فِيَّا, and those who love one another for my sake, meaning that you don't love somebody else because of some selfish motive, but you love them purely for the sake of Allah. وَالْمُسْتَغْفِرِينَ بِالْأَسْحَارِ, and I look towards those who do istighfar to me, who seek my forgiveness at the Tahajjud time. So when I look at those people who establish and maintain the masjids, what happens? صَرَفْتُ عَنْهُمْ, I withhold my punishment. So my punishment is on the verge of destroying a community. A calamity is due to come down, and then what happens is I look towards people who are establishing masajid, and because of them, I withhold the punishment from the entire community. So establishing a masjid like this is beneficial in so many ways to the wider community, both Muslim and non-Muslim. And then our Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam informed us that he said, Bashiril masha'un, the masha'un, those who walk to the masjid, that for every single step that you take towards the masjid, you get a good deed, a sin of yours is wiped out, and you are elevated in rank for every single step that you take towards the masjid, or for every second that you are driving here. And then he said sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Bashiril mudlijeen. Mudlijeen are those people who travel to the masjid in the darkness of the night. What is the glad tiding for the mudlijeen who come to Maghrib and Isha and Fajr prayer when it's completely dark? He said that they will be honored with manabir min nur. They will be honored with pulpits, thrones made out of light on Yawm al-Qiyamah. And what will happen as a result? يَفْزَعُونَ النَّاسَ وَلَا يَفْزَعُونَ. On Judgment Day, people will be so scared. It's a terrifying day that Allah says that Judgment Day is so scary, it would turn the hair of children grey. And on Judgment Day, it's going to be so scary that يَوْمَ يَفِرُ الْمَرْءُ مِنْ أَخِيهِ, that a man will run away from his sibling, وَأُمِّهِ وَأَبِيهِ, and from his mother and father. The closest of relations will not want to know each other on that day. It will be the most terrifying day of all time. But on that day, if you want to be calm and you want to be relaxed, then donate towards the masjid, help it in any way that you can, even if that's through removing a speck of dust. What will happen is, you will be seated on minarets, on thrones of light, and you will be completely tranquil when everybody around you, all of humankind, is struggling and is terrified. But we have to remember here that the role of the masjid is not just a place to pray. The Arabic word for a place of prayer is musalla. Okay, and our Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he told us, جُعِلَتْ لِيَ الْأَرْضُ طَهُورًا وَمَسْجِدًا. Our Messenger said, the entire world has been made a masjid for me, a musalla, a place of prayer. You can pray anywhere. And that's the unique aspect of this ummah, because the previous ummahs, they had to go to certain places to pray. But this ummah has been blessed that the whole world has been made a masjid for them, a musalla, a place of prayer. And so the word that's used in the Arab world and was used traditionally in Islamic history for a masjid is a jami. So they wouldn't use the word masjid that much, they would use the word jami or kulliya. Now jami in Arabic, it means something which is all-inclusive, and kulliya, something which is universal. So whilst we are establishing this masjid, we need to remind ourselves what's the role of the mosque. Yes, the role is to pray, but let's look at the Prophet ﷺ's masjid and the masajid throughout the history of the Islamic Empire. Let's take the example of Sultan Bayezid. Sultan Bayezid, the Ottoman emperor in the 15th century. What did his mosque contain? First of all, his masjid, his mosque, which is a jami or a kulliya, is all-inclusive, all-encompassing. It had madrasas and colleges. And so education is the central feature of a masjid. Our Messenger ﷺ, once he came into the masjid and he saw two groups. One group was praying nafal prayer, doing dua and reciting Quran. The second group in the other corner, in his masjid, they were learning and teaching. And he said ﷺ that both of these groups are good, but those who are learning and teaching are superior to the ones who are just doing nafal prayer and doing dua and reciting Quran. And he said what? إِنَّمَا بُعِثْتُ مُعَلِّمًا. I was sent as a muallim, as a teacher. So I'm happy that learning and teaching is going on in my masjid. Now apart from that, the jami, the kulliya of Sultan Bayezid in the 15th century, it also had a hospital attached to it. And they had a room there in the hospital where they had music therapy for those who were suffering from mental health issues. And they had a pharmacy where people were given free medicine. Then it also had a soup kitchen in which they had over 20 employees in the soup kitchen joined to the masjid, and people were given free food, whether they were Muslim or non-Muslim, rich or poor, twice a day. Now, I do a lot of interfaith work in my role, and one of the things that the Sikh community like to boast about whenever we have any sort of interfaith event is the fact that they actually give free food. So this is another thing that the masajid ought to be doing. And actually the Sikh community, they took that from the Muslim community when Sikhism was founded. And then the masjid, it also had rooms, accommodation for those who were fleeing war. So those who were homeless, those who were fleeing any sort of battle, they were allowed to stay in the accommodation of the masjid for free. And then it had a zawiya where there would be a spiritual person, a Sufi saint, and he would help people with their mental health issues, with their personal problems and so forth. And this is the kind of environment, this jami, this kulliya, in which the great people like Imam Al-Ghazali, Imam Fakhruddin Al-Razi, all of these, Avicenna, Ibn Sina, these great minds, these giants of intellectualism in our history, they grew up in these jami, in these kulliyas, because they had the place to pray, they had education, they had their physical, mental and spiritual needs attended to. And that's what we need to try to revive here. So I'm very pleased that the people who are leading this project are trying to revive that and trying to provide all of these kind of services that every masjid should be providing as a jami or a kulliya. And then the masjid should also reflect the architecture of the community as well. So as Dr. Umar Farooq Abdullah, he says that in history, Islam showed itself to be culturally friendly, and in that regard, it's like a river. And Islam is like a river, it's water, the water is Islam, its water is pure, sweet and life-giving, but it does not have any unique color of its own. So Dr. Umar Farooq Abdullah is saying, if you look at Islamic history, you'll find that Islam is like water. It's neutral in color, and it would flow and take the shape of the area that is flowing through. And then he says that, for example, in China, Islam looked Chinese. In Africa, it looked African. And then it reflected the cultural relevance of the people. And this is extremely important. The architecture of the masjid should reflect the wider community and the cultural values and so forth of the local community. And this is why you will read the stories of many people who converted to Islam, including one of my own teachers, Shaykh Abdul Hakim Murad, Professor Tim Winter, who has established the now world-famous masjid in Cambridge, which is eco-friendly. And there are so many people who have, in fact, in last year they had 100 converts, 100 people who became Muslim just by visiting the masjid. They would come to the masjid and see it's using solar panels, recycling rainwater, it's open to everybody, it has a cafe, it has a garden, an Islamic garden, and all of these features, they fascinate people who are not Muslim. And they say, if this is Islam, then I want to know more about this. And if this is Islam, then I want to be part of this deen as well. So we also need to try to establish here, I know the new project has a garden, and I've advised those who are heading this project to try to make that into an Islamic garden. So the Islamic garden, it would be historically, it would have, the mosque itself would have stained glass. So stained glass, which is in the churches that Christians are very proud of, they took stained glass from the Muslims of Egypt and the Muslims of Syria. And then the Ibn Tulun Mosque in Egypt, which was also a hospital, by the way. So the Ibn Tulun Mosque in Egypt was a mosque and a hospital giving free medicine and free treatment, free healthcare. It has arches. So the arches that you often see in the design of the churches, they again took that from the architecture of the early mosques. And also they had Islamic gardens, which were supposed to represent a taste of Jannah on earth, because Jannah in the Quran is described as a place of flowing water and fruits and flowers, and that's why the Islamic gardens, they would have fountains, flowing water and fruits and so forth. So I hope that we can inshallah implement this, and I hope that all of us as a community, we can make this project successful and make it into a jami and a kulliya. That's why historically the Mosque of Al-Azhar was called Jami Al-Azhar. Even to this day, Al-Azhar University Complex, it's got a university. If you go to Egypt now, you'll find Al-Azhar Mosque has got the university attached to it. And then likewise in Morocco, Fatima al-Fikhri, this famous lady, she established the Jami al-Qarawiyyin, the Qarawiyun Mosque and complex in Morocco. She established this mosque, which was also serving as a university and giving food to people and serving their physical, mental and spiritual needs. So I pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala helps all of us, male and female, to participate in this unique project. And unfortunately, many of our masajid, I'm sorry to say, are not fulfilling all of this. So many masajid, you'll see they've got plenty of funds, and in the community there are plenty of people who have the skills, the professional skills, to make it into a very diverse and thriving sector. But a lot of the time you find that you are hindered from trying to do what's required in the masjid. So I hope that all of us here spread the word about this project, and that each one of us contributes, even if it's the smallest of donations, or also giving your time, your professional skills. And this should be a center that is a model for other masajid to follow. It should be a center that is a kulliya and a jami, and it serves the Muslim and non-Muslim community in terms of their physical, mental and spiritual needs. So I pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala helps us to act upon what's been said, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make our intentions sincere, and may He help us to make this a masjid that serves as a sadaqah jariyah, a perpetual reward for us in this life and the hereafter until Yawm al-Qiyamah, inshallah.